Ambassador Zekthara sat in her crystal office high above the trading docks of Harmony's Edge Station. The neutral space station floated between 3 different star systems, making it the perfect place for diplomatic meetings and trade deals. Through her transparent walls, she could see ships from dozens of different species coming and going. The sight usually filled her with pride. Her people, the Volnari, had helped build this peaceful meeting place. Today, however, something bothered her. She had been reading through the Galactic law books, looking for trade regulations that might affect her next business deal. The Volnari were known throughout the galaxy as the best information brokers and deal makers. They knew everyone's secrets and could arrange anything for the right price. But as she read through page after page of laws, treaties and agreements, she noticed something strange. There was nothing about humans. Not one single law, rule, or regulation mentioned them at all. This was odd, because humans had colonies scattered across many star systems and traded with most species regularly. Zekthara's 4 eyes blinked in confusion. Her people kept detailed records on every species in the galaxy. They had files on the aggressive Saurian Empire, the mind-reading Kethmori, the crystal-bodied Christek, and hundreds of others. But when it came to humans, their files were surprisingly thin. She decided to ask around during the evening diplomatic dinner. The main hall of Harmony's Edge was filled with representatives from many worlds. The air buzzed with conversation in dozens of different languages, all automatically translated by the station systems. Zekthara approached. Ambassador Veltar from the Kethmori delegation. The tall, thin alien had purple skin that could sense emotions and thoughts. His people were natural psychics and rarely kept secrets. "Veltar," she said in her musical voice, "I was wondering about human trade routes. Are there any special agreements we should know about?" The purple alien's skin immediately went pale. His large black eyes looked around nervously. "Humans? Why do you ask about humans, Zekthara?" "Just curious. I noticed there are no specific laws about them in the galactic codes." Veltar's skin began to show swirls of deep blue, a sign of fear in his people. "Some things do not need to be written down," he whispered. "Everyone just knows." Before Zekthara could ask more questions, Veltar quickly excused himself and walked away. She watched him leave with growing curiosity. In all her years as a diplomat, she had never seen a Kethmori show fear like that. She tried talking to other delegates. Commander Brakth from the Saurian Empire was known for his brutal honesty and warrior pride. His people feared nothing and conquered planets for fun. "Commander," she said, approaching his table, "I heard there was some trouble near human space last year. Pirates or something?" The huge lizard-like warrior stopped eating, his yellow eyes fixed on her face. For a moment, she thought he might attack her for even asking. Instead, he just shook his massive head. "No pirates near human space," he said quietly. "Never any pirates near human space. Never any trouble at all. But surely your empire has had some contact with them. Your people explore everywhere." Commander Brakth H stood up suddenly, his chair scraping against the floor. "The Saurian Empire has many enemies," he said slowly. "Humans are not among them. Humans will never be among them." He walked away without another word. The same thing happened with every delegate she spoke to. The Christek ambassador's light patterns dimmed when she mentioned humans. The floating minds from Nebula 7 simply stopped responding to her questions. Even the merchant traders from the Outer Rim found reasons to leave the conversation. By the end of the dinner, Zekthara was more confused than ever. It was as if the entire galaxy had agreed never to talk about humans, but nobody had written down this agreement anywhere. Back in her office, she searched through her people's private databases. The Volnari collected information like other species collected art or weapons. Their secret files contained dirt on every major leader, hidden trade deals, and military secrets that could topple governments. But their files on humans were strange. They were basic facts. They came from a planet called Earth. They had colonies on dozens of worlds. They traded peacefully with most species. There were even some cultural notes about their love of something called coffee and their tendency to make friends with any species they met. What was missing were the important details. There were no military assessments, no weakness reports, no strategic analyses. Instead, there were just a few short notes that made no sense. Recommend avoiding conflict at all costs. Read one note from 15 years ago. Do not engage. Do not provoke. Do not investigate, said another. The Sol incident files remain classified by direct order of the Information Council, stated a third. Zekthara had never heard of the Sol incident. But if the Information Council had classified it, that meant it was serious. The Council only locked away information that could damage entire civilizations. She found references to something called the Proxima Response and the Milwaukee Doctrine, but the actual files had been completely erased. Someone had gone through their databases and removed every detail about these events. The strangest thing was a single line of text that appeared in dozens of different files. Remember the Vex-Star Collective? Zekthara knew about the Vex-Star Collective. They had been the most feared pirate organization in galactic history. For 300 years, they had terrorized trade routes and destroyed anyone who opposed them. They commanded massive fleets and had members from dozens of different species. No single government could stop them. But 15 years ago, they had simply vanished. One day they were raiding ships across 12 star systems. The next day, they were gone. All of them. Their ships, their bases, their leaders. Everything had disappeared without a trace. Zekthara pulled up the timeline. The collective had vanished at exactly the same time as these mysterious incidents involving humans. This could not be a coincidence. She leaned back in her chair, her mind racing. Every species in the galaxy seemed to know something about humans that was not written in any law book. Something that made the strongest warriors nervous and caused entire conversations to stop. Something that had somehow made the most dangerous pirates in the galaxy disappear forever. Whatever this unwritten rule was, it was more powerful than any law. And Zekthara was determined to find out why. The next morning, Zekthara could not stop thinking about humans. She had barely slept, her mind spinning with questions that had no answers. As one of the top information specialists for the Velanari, she was used to knowing everything about everyone. The idea that there was a species she could not understand made her feel itchy. Under her silver skin, her people were proud of their intelligence. They had helped smaller species avoid wars, guided primitive civilizations to space travel, and prevented dozens of galactic conflicts through careful planning. The Velanari had never met a problem they could not solve with enough information and the right strategy. But humans were different somehow. They were a puzzle with missing pieces. Zekthara opened her communication system and sent messages to her contacts across the galaxy. The Velanari had agents everywhere. Traders, scientists, diplomats, and even some criminals. If anyone had real information about humans, her network would find it. The responses came back within hours, and they were all similar. Her agents reported the same strange behavior she had seen at the dinner. No one wanted to talk about humans. Trade records showed that human colonies were never attacked by pirates. Human ships traveled safely through the most dangerous parts of space. Human diplomatic requests were always approved quickly and without argument. One message caught her attention. It came from Agent Kixana, who worked as a security officer on a trade station near human space. "Boss," the message read, "you asked about humans, so I watched them more closely. Something weird. They are not special at all. They are shorter than saurians, weaker than most species, not very fast. Their ships look normal, maybe even old-fashioned. Their weapons are basic energy blasters, nothing fancy. But here's the strange part. No one ever bothers them. Ever. Pirates will attack ships right next to human vessels, but they never touch the humans. It is like there is an invisible wall around them. Zekthara leaned forward in her chair. This was exactly what she had suspected. Humans seemed ordinary, but somehow they were completely protected from the violence and chaos that affected every other species. She pulled up more detailed records from her databases. Human ships were indeed unremarkable. They used fusion engines like most civilizations, carried standard defensive systems, and had normal crew sizes. Their colonies grew at a steady rate without the population explosions seen in some species or the decline seen in others. Everything about humans seemed average, even boring. Yet the numbers told a different story. Human trade routes had a 0% piracy rate. 0. No other species could claim that. Human colonies had never been attacked by hostile forces. Their diplomatic missions had a 100% success rate. These statistics were impossible for any normal civilization. Zekthara decided to dig deeper into the Vextar collective disappearance. She used her highest security clearance to access the restricted files in the Velinari archives. What she found made her heart beat faster. That the Vextar collective had been led by a creature called Warlord Gaxon, a massive four-armed alien with cybernetic implants and a reputation for extreme cruelty. He commanded over 50,000 pirates across 200 different star systems. His fleet included captured warships from a dozen different species and weapons, stolen from military bases. For 3 centuries, Gaxon had grown stronger. He recruited criminals from every species, built secret bases in asteroid fields, and developed his own weapons. The collective had become so powerful that entire governments paid them tribute instead of fighting. Then, 15 years ago, Gaxon made what the files called first contact with human shipping. The records were brief and confusing. A human cargo ship called the Peaceful Trader had been stopped by Vextar pirates near a mining world. The ship was carrying basic supplies, food, medical equipment, and clothing. Nothing valuable enough to start a war over. The pirates demanded the cargo and threatened to capture the crew for slave labor. This was standard procedure for the collective. They had done the same thing thousands of times before. The human captain asked only one question. Are there children on your ships? When told there were no children among the pirates, the captain said something that was recorded that made no sense to the translator. Ladies and gentlemen, we are weapons free. After that, the records became very strange. The Vextar ships reported impossible energy readings and unknown weapon systems. Communications between pirate vessels became frantic and confused. Some ships reported that their own weapons had stopped working. Others said their engines were shutting down without explanation. The last transmission from Warlord Gaxon was just 4 words. What have we done? Then silence. Complete, total silence from the most feared criminal organization in the galaxy. Zekthara read through incident reports from the weeks that followed. Search teams from multiple governments had looked for the collective, but found nothing. No wreckage, no bodies, no abandoned bases. It was as if 50,000 pirates and their massive fleet had simply stopped existing. The only clue was a message found on the communication buoy near the mining world. It was in human language, translated as "problem solved. Returning to scheduled cargo delivery. Thanks for your patience." Zekthara sat back in her chair, her mind reeling. A single human cargo ship had somehow destroyed the most powerful criminal organization in galactic history. Not defeated, destroyed completely. And then they had continued with their delivery like nothing had happened. She pulled up files on human military capabilities, but found almost nothing. Humans had a space navy, but it seemed small compared to other civilizations. Their weapons technology appeared to be at average galactic standards. Their ships were not particularly fast or well-armored, yet somehow they had done something that entire star empires could not do. As the day went on, more responses came from her network. The pattern was always the same. Humans seemed normal in every way, but the galaxy treated them with a respect that bordered on fear. Trade deals with humans were completed faster than with any other species. Diplomatic requests from human colonies were approved without the usual bureaucratic delays. Most telling of all, no one, absolutely no one, had ever reported a successful attack on human ships or colonies. Pirates, raiders, and even military forces from hostile civilizations all seemed to avoid human space entirely. Zekthara realized she was looking at the greatest information puzzle of her career. Somehow, humans had achieved perfect security without seeming to have superior technology or military power. They had become untouchable without appearing threatening. The Valinari in her could not let this mystery remain unsolved. Her people prided themselves on understanding everything and everyone. If they could figure out how humans had achieved this impossible safety, the Valinari could use that knowledge to help other species make better trade deals and maintain their reputation as the galaxy's premier information brokers. By evening, Zekthara had made her decision. She would conduct a small, careful test to study human capabilities firsthand. Nothing dangerous or harmful, just enough to see how humans really responded to threats. After all, what was the worst that could happen? They seemed like such an ordinary, peaceful species. 3 weeks later, Zekthara had her plan ready. Despite the warnings from her staff and the increasingly worried messages from other Valinari leaders, she was determined to solve the human mystery. Her pride would not let her walk away from the greatest puzzle she had ever encountered. She had spent days studying human shipping routes and found the perfect target. A small research vessel called the UNSC Curiosity traveled regular routes between human colonies, carrying scientists who studied stars and planets. The ship was small, carried only 12 crew members, and had minimal weapons. Most importantly, it was a research ship, not a military vessel. So any incident could be explained as a misunderstanding. Zekthara hired mercenaries for the job, being very careful to choose ones with no connections to her or the Valinari. She found a group of freelance raiders led by Captain Voss, a grizzled veteran who had worked for various criminal organizations over the years. His crew was made up of outcasts from different species, the kind of aliens who would do any job for the right price. The job is simple, she told Voss over an encrypted communication channel. Stop the human ship, study their response, take some non-essential cargo, and let them go. No violence unless they attack first. I want to observe, not start a war. Captain Voss scratched his scarred jaw with one of his forearms. His species, the Thrakari, were natural soldiers, but not very bright. You sure about this, lady? My contacts say humans are bad news. Your contacts spread the same rumors I am trying to investigate, Zekthara replied. Humans are just another species. They have been lucky so far, but luck runs out eventually. She paid the mercenaries well and gave them strict instructions. No killing, no serious damage to the ship, and definitely no harming the crew. This was to be a study, not an attack. She wanted to see how humans really reacted to threats when they could not run away. Zekthara positioned monitoring ships throughout the system where the encounter would take place. She had sensors, cameras, and communication interceptors ready to record everything. Her plan was to gather data on human tactics, technology, and psychology that no one else had ever collected. The Curiosity was scheduled to pass through the Kepler 442 system on a Tuesday morning, carrying a team of scientists returning from studying a strange star formation. According to her intelligence, the crew consisted of academics, physicists, astronomers, and biologists. They were exactly the kind of soft targets that would show her how humans really behaved under pressure. Everything went according to plan initially. Captain Voss and his crew intercepted the human ship right on schedule. The Curiosity dropped out of faster-than-light travel, exactly where Zekthara had predicted. And the mercenaries moved in smoothly. Human vessel. Voss broadcast over standard communication frequencies. This is Captain Voss of the independent vessel Reaper's Edge. Cut your engines and prepare to be boarded for inspection. Zekthara watched from her hidden observation post, her recording devices capturing every detail. This was the moment she had been waiting for. The chance to see humans without their mysterious protection, forced to deal with a real threat. The response from the Curiosity was surprisingly calm. A woman's voice came over the communication channel, speaking in the clear, measured tones of someone reading from a script. This is Dr. Sarah Chun, captain of the research vessel Curiosity. We are a civilian scientific mission with no military cargo or classified information. We will comply with inspection procedures according to Galactic salvage laws. Zekthara frowned. This was not the response she had expected. The humans seemed almost bored by the situation. There was no panic in Dr. Chun's voice. No demands to know why they were being stopped. No threats or attempts to negotiate. Captain Voss seemed surprised too. In his experience, most crews either tried to run, fight, or bargain when faced with raiders. The complete lack of resistance was unusual. Right, Voss said, clearly off balance. Prepare to be boarded. Keep your hands visible and do not touch any controls. Understood, Dr. Chun replied. We are shutting down all non-essential systems now. Our crew is gathering in the main laboratory for inspection. Through her monitoring equipment, Zekthara could see inside both ships. The human crew was indeed gathering in one room, but something about their behavior bothered her. They moved with the kind of calm efficiency she had only seen in elite military units. Not civilian scientists. Dr. Chen herself was particularly interesting. She appeared to be a middle-aged human woman with graying hair and the soft build typical of academics. But she carried herself like a soldier, and her eyes never stopped scanning her surroundings. As Captain Voss and his boarding party prepared to enter the human ship, one of them made a casual comment that would change everything. "Boss," said Zrek, "a young Courtney pirate. Should we check if they got any kids on board? Might be worth more as hostages." It was a throwaway comment, the kind of crude joke common among criminals. But Zekthara noticed that every human on the ship suddenly went completely still. Dr. Chun's relaxed expression vanished, replaced by something that made Zekthara's skin crawl with instinctive fear. "Captain Voss," Dr. Chun said, her voice now carrying a strange undertone that the translators had trouble processing. "Before we proceed, I need to ask you a question. Are there any children aboard your vessels?" Voss looked confused by the question. "Children? No, lady. This is a raider crew, not a family ship." "Why do you ask?" Dr. Chun was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was completely different. Gone was the polite, cooperative scientist. In her place was someone else entirely. "Computer," she said, "are you recording this conversation?" "Yes, Dr. Chun," replied the ship's artificial intelligence. "Log entry for the record. Hostile forces have confirmed no civilian dependents aboard their vessels. Threat assessment complete. Citadel Protocol 7 is now authorized." Zekthara felt a chill run through her 4 hearts. She had never heard of Citadel Protocol 7, but something about the way Dr. Chun said it made her want to order her ships to retreat immediately. "Computer," Dr. Chun continued, "please send a priority message on quantum frequency 77 alpha. Message reads, 'This is Research Vessel Curiosity. Protocols have been violated. Initiating Prometheus response. Send children home. Captain Voss and his crew were still preparing to board when Zektharis' sensors detected something impossible. Energy readings from the human ship had just increased by 3,000%. Systems that had not shown up on any scan were suddenly coming online, revealing technology that should not exist on a civilian research vessel. Dr. Chun, Captain Voss said, his voice now showing the first signs of nervousness. What is all this talk about protocols and responses? Dr. Chun looked directly into the communication camera, and for the first time, Zekthara saw her smile. It was not a pleasant expression. Captain, she said quietly, you just made the biggest mistake of your very short remaining life. You bothered humans. That was when the screaming started. The screaming came from Captain Voss's ship. Zekthara watched in horror as her carefully planned observation mission turned into something that would give her nightmares for the rest of her life. The first thing that went wrong was the boarding party. The 6 mercenaries who had been preparing to enter the human ship suddenly found themselves unable to move. Their weapons stopped working. Their communication devices went silent. Their power armor shut down, leaving them floating helplessly in space between the 2 ships. What is happening? Captain Voss shouted into his communication system, but he got no response from his boarding team. Dr. Chen's voice came through clearly on all frequencies. Computer, begin tactical assessment of hostile vessels. Full spectrum analysis. The curiosity began to change before Zekthara's eyes. Panels opened along the hull, revealing weapon systems that had been completely hidden from all scans. Energy readings continued to climb, showing power output that should have been impossible for a ship that size. But the weapons were not the most frightening part. It was the way the humans moved. All 12 crew members seemed to know exactly what to do without speaking to each other. They moved through their ship like a single organism, each person performing complex tasks that fit perfectly with what the others were doing. Dr. Chen continued to give calm, quiet orders while simultaneously operating 3 different control stations. Dr. Martinez, please begin full system takeover of hostile vessels, she said while her hands flew over controls that were definitely not scientific equipment. Young-looking human man nodded and began typing on a console. Within seconds, Captain Voss's ship started experiencing massive system failures. Engines shut down. Weapons went offline. Life support systems began cycling incorrectly. What are you doing to my ship? Voss screamed. Dr. Okafor, Dr. Chun, continued without answering. Please initiate communication with Fleet Command. Inform them that research protocols have been violated and we are implementing standard response measures. Zekthar's monitoring equipment detected something impossible. The human ship was sending messages using quantum communication technology that was supposed to be theoretical. The signals were going out to every human colony and ship in the galaxy simultaneously, traveling faster than light in ways that broke several physical laws. Within minutes, responses began coming back from across human space, not just from military bases, but from civilian colonies, research stations, mining outposts, and trading ships. Every single human settlement was responding to Dr. Chun's message. This is Colony Ship New Horizon, came one transmission. Message received. Children secure. Adults responding. Research Station Alpha 7 acknowledging, came another. Families protected. Science teams mobilizing. Mining platform Delta acknowledging protocols. Workers' families safe. Fleet moving. The messages kept coming. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Every human in the galaxy was responding to Dr. Chun's call. And they were all saying the same thing. The children were safe. And the adults were coming. Captain Voss was panicking now. His ship was completely dead in space. controlled by the humans through some kind of technology he could not understand. "Lady," he called to Zekthara on their secret communication channel. "You need to stop this now. Something is very wrong here." But Zekthara could not respond. Her own ship's systems were starting to fail. The humans had somehow detected her hidden observation posts and were systematically shutting down her equipment. Dr. Chun spoke again, her voice still calm but now carrying an undertone that made Zekthara's blood freeze. "Computer, how long until fleet arrival?" "First wave of civilian vessels will arrive in 4 hours, Dr. Chen. Military support ships are 6 hours out. Full response fleet estimated at 12 hours. Civilian vessels?" Voss asked weakly. Dr. Chun turned to look at him through the communication screen. Her pleasant, academic face had not changed, but her eyes were now completely cold. "Captain, you attacked a human ship. That means every human family in the galaxy now considers you a threat to their children. They are coming to remove that threat." "But we did not hurt anyone," Voss protested. "This was just supposed to be a simple raid." "You pointed weapons at humans," Dr. Chen said simply. "You threatened to take us prisoner. In human culture, that is the same as threatening our families, our children." Zekthara sensors detected new ships entering the system. Human ships, but not military vessels. These were family transports, research ships, merchant vessels, and colony ships. Civilian craft that should have been helpless in a fight, but they were not helpless. As each ship arrived, it revealed the same hidden capabilities that the Curiosity had shown. Civilian research vessels carried weapon systems that surpassed military-grade equipment. Family transport ships had defensive technology that could stop entire fleets. "Dr. Chun," Zekthar finally managed to speak. Her voice transmitted on an emergency frequency. "I am Ambassador Zekthara of the Velinari Consortium. I was the one who organized this encounter. It was meant to be a peaceful study, nothing more." Dr. Chun looked toward one of the monitoring posts where Zekthara was hidden. Somehow, she knew exactly where to look. "Ambassador, thank you for identifying yourself. Computer, please record that confession for later reference." "Please," Zekthara begged. "I did not mean any harm. I was just trying to understand why the galaxy fears humans when you seem so peaceful." "We are peaceful," Dr. Chen said calmly. "We prefer to study stars, trade with our neighbors, and raise our children in safety. But when someone threatens that peace, we do not just defend ourselves. We solve the problem." More human ships continued to arrive. Zekthara counted at least 50 vessels now, with more appearing every few minutes. But these were not just coming from nearby colonies. Her instruments showed that some of these ships had traveled from the other side of the galaxy in just a few hours, using faster-than-light technology that was supposed to be impossible. How? Zekthara whispered. Dr. Chun seemed to hear her despite the distance and interference. "Ambassador, you wanted to study humans. Let me teach you something important. Humans do not just adapt to challenges. We engineer solutions. When we first left Earth and discovered that space was dangerous, we did not just build better weapons or stronger defenses. The human fleet began to move into formation around Captain Voss's disabled ship. Each vessel took a precise position, creating a sphere of overwhelming firepower. We built a system," Dr. Chun continued. "Every human settlement, no matter how small or remote, is connected to every other human settlement through quantum communication networks. Every human ship, from the largest colony vessel to the smallest cargo hauler, carries technology that can defend not just itself, but any other human in the galaxy. But how is that possible?" Zekthara asked. "Because," Dr. Chen said with a small smile, "when you threaten one human, you threaten all humans. And when all humans decide that something is a problem that needs to be solved, we do not just fix the immediate issue. We make sure it never happens again. The human fleet had finished positioning itself. 50 ships, most of them carrying families and civilian workers, now commanded enough firepower to destroy a small planet. But they were not preparing to attack. They were preparing to think. "Computer," Dr. Chen said, "begin comprehensive problem analysis. Full galactic scope. I want solutions that address not just this immediate incident, but all possible future iterations of this type of threat. Analysis beginning." Dr. Chen, estimated completion time, 37 minutes. Captain Voss looked around at the human fleet surrounding his ship and made a sound that might have been sobbing. "What have we done?" He whispered. Dr. Chen answered him with the same gentle tone she might use to explain stellar formation to a student. "Captain, you have given humanity a problem to solve. And we are very, very good at solving problems." 6 hours later, the human fleet had grown to over 200 ships. They came from every corner of human space. Not warships, but ordinary people in ordinary vessels. Families who had been on vacation, scientists conducting research, traders making their regular routes, and even children on school field trips. ZEK single quotes THA or A watched in growing horror as each arriving ship took its place in the growing formation. What terrified her was not their weapons, though those were impressive enough. What terrified her was how they all worked together without any apparent coordination, moving like parts of a single massive machine. Dr. Chen had not left her post on the bridge of the Curiosity during this time. She continued to work calmly at her stations, occasionally speaking to her crew or to the fleet, but mostly just monitoring data streams that flowed across her screens faster than any organic mind should have been able to process. "Computer," she said, finally. "Analysis complete?" "Yes, Dr. Chen. Comprehensive solution package ready for implementation. Please summarize for our observers." The computer's voice filled all communication channels, ensuring that Zekthara, Captain Voss, and the remains of the mercenary crew could hear every word. Analysis of the current threat situation shows the following. Captain Voss and his crew represent a standard criminal organization with ties to 14 different illegal groups across 9 star systems. The organization that hired them, led by Ambassador Zekthara, has conducted similar operations against 47 other species over the past decade. Zekthara's blood went cold. Somehow, in just 6 hours, the humans had uncovered her people's most carefully guarded secrets. Furthermore, the computer continued. The pattern of behavior suggests this incident was designed to test human capabilities for strategic advantage. The Velinary Consortium has a history of using such information to manipulate interstellar politics and profit from conflicts between other species. That is not, Zekthara started to protest. But the computer kept talking. However, this incident also reveals a larger problem. The current galactic situation allows for random acts of piracy and aggression because there is no effective deterrent system. Criminals like Captain Voss can operate freely because law enforcement is limited to individual star systems and species. Dr. Chen stood up from her chair and walked to the main view screen. Around her ship, the human fleet hung in perfect formation, waiting. "Ambassador Zekthara," she said, "you wanted to understand why there is an unwritten rule about bothering humans. The answer is simple. We do not just solve immediate problems. We solve root causes." "What do you mean?" Zekthara asked weakly. "Watch and learn." Dr. Chen turned to her crew. "Dr. Martinez, please begin implementation of Solution Package Alpha. Dr. Okafor, initiate galaxy-wide communication protocols. Dr. Singh, start the mathematics." What happened next was unlike anything Zekthara had ever seen. The human fleet did not attack or threaten. Instead, they began to work. Ships spread throughout the star system. positioning themselves at specific coordinates that seemed to follow some complex mathematical pattern. Each vessel began broadcasting on different frequencies, sending out streams of data that connected to form a galaxy-wide network. "Computer," Dr. Chun said, "begin Phase 1 of comprehensive problem resolution." Across the galaxy, human ships and colonies began reporting in. But they were not just acknowledging orders, they were sharing information. Every human settlement was connected to a massive data analysis network that started processing information about crime, piracy, and corruption on a galactic scale. Within minutes, detailed reports began flooding in. The locations of hidden pirate bases, the real identities of corrupt officials, trade routes used by smugglers. Criminal organizations that had operated in secret for decades suddenly found their activities exposed and documented. Phase 1 complete, the computer reported. All major criminal organizations mapped and cataloged. Phase 2 initiating. Captain Voss was shaking now. "What is Phase 2? He whispered. Doctor Chun looked at him with something that might have been pity. "Phase 2 is where we solve the piracy problem, permanently." The human ships began to move, not toward immediate targets, but spreading out across the galaxy, using their impossible faster-than-light technology. They were not going to attack random criminals. They were positioning themselves to end crime itself. "Dr. Chun," Zekthara said desperately, "surely you cannot mean to police the entire galaxy." "We do not need to police anything," Dr. Chun replied. "We just need to change the equation." She gestured to her screens, which showed a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Red dots marked criminal organizations, pirate fleets, and corrupt governments. There were thousands of them. "Computer, begin Phase 3. Show them the new rules." What happened next would be talked about in whispered conversations for generations to come. Every criminal organization in the galaxy suddenly found themselves facing the same situation as Captain Voss. Their ships stopped working. Their weapons went dead. Their communications were taken over by polite human voices explaining that their criminal activities had been identified and that they now had a choice. "Attention criminal organizations." Dr. Chun's voice echoed across hundreds of star systems simultaneously. "You have exactly 1 hour to surrender all stolen goods, release all prisoners, and disband your operations. After that time, you will be considered an ongoing threat to galactic peace and will be dealt with accordingly." "You cannot do this," screamed a voice from somewhere in space, probably a pirate leader who had just found his fleet disabled. "You have no authority." "No right." Dr. Chun's response was calm and educational. "We have something better than authority. We have mathematics." The human fleet began demonstrating what that meant. Using technology that seemed to violate the laws of physics, they started making surgical changes to the galaxy itself. Asteroid fields that had hidden pirate bases were carefully moved to safer locations. Trade routes were optimized to eliminate the isolated areas where attacks commonly occurred. Even the locations of planets were slightly adjusted to create better sightlines and communication networks. They were not conquering the galaxy. They were redesigning it. Phase 4, Dr. Chun announced. Preventive measures. This was when Zekthara realized the true scope of human thinking. They were not just stopping current criminals. They were changing the fundamental conditions that allowed crime to exist. Remote areas of space gained monitoring stations that appeared out of nowhere. Communication networks were upgraded to ensure that no ship could disappear without trace. Trade routes were rearranged to eliminate opportunities for ambush. Most remarkably, they were doing it all with technology that appeared to be standard equipment on civilian ships. Every human family transport, research vessel, and cargo hauler carried tools that could reshape reality on a galactic scale. "How long have you been able to do this?" Zekthara asked in amazement. "Since the beginning," Dr. Chen replied. When humans first left Earth and discovered that space was dangerous, we made a simple decision. Our children would grow up in a galaxy where they were safe. Not just protected, but truly safe. The Vexstar Collective, Zekthara whispered, finally understanding. Yes, they made the mistake of threatening a human cargo ship. We solved that problem completely. Not just by stopping them, but by making sure no organization like them could ever exist again. Dr. Chen turned to face the camera directly. Ambassador, you asked why there is an unwritten rule about bothering humans. Now you know. It is not because we are cruel or aggressive. It is because when something threatens our families, we do not just fight back. We engineer a universe where that threat cannot exist. The human fleet began to withdraw, their impossible faster than light drives, carrying them back to their homes across the galaxy. But they left behind a changed universe. Crime rates had dropped to near zero. Piracy had become mathematically impossible. Corrupt governments found themselves unable to function. As the Curiosity prepared to resume its research mission, Dr. Chen made one final statement. Captain Voss, you and your surviving crew will be transported to the nearest law enforcement facility. Your trial will be fair and your sentence will be appropriate to your crimes. But you will never again have the opportunity to threaten innocent people. Ambassador Zekthara, you will be returned to your people with a complete record of this encounter. Your government will undoubtedly want to study what happened here. You are welcome to share our message with the rest of the galaxy. What message? Zekthara asked. Dr. Chen smiled, a warm, genuine expression that somehow made her previous coldness even more frightening by contrast. The message is simple. Humans are peaceful, curious, and friendly. We want to explore the universe, make friends with our neighbors, and raise our children in safety. We will trade fairly, share our knowledge, and help anyone who needs assistance. She paused, her smile never wavering. But if you threaten our families, we will solve you, completely, permanently, mathematically. The Curiosity engaged its engines and disappeared into faster-than-light travel, returning to its scheduled mission of studying star formations. As if nothing had happened. As if they had not just redesigned the fundamental nature of galactic civilization.